Welcome everyone to the very first episode of Wireframo. I am Ankur, and along with my UX and design systems, I have been building Wireframo as my personal brand and community with one big vision, which is to make design systems, tokens, and the future of design more approachable, like bit practical and bit more human as well. So Wireframo is more about it's more than just tools, I will say, and it's more about conversations, creativity, and collaboration. And this podcast, in one of the ways, I want to bring that vision to life. So I am thrilled to kick things off today with two brilliant guests who will be joining me as curious students of design systems, I will say. First, we have Genevieve Dubé, a UX designer, creative thinker, and a design systems enthusiast who currently studying advanced courses at Design Labs UX Academy. She's led at a fast-paced startup and even run her own business. So she knows the real world impact of design systems. So hi, Genevieve. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Cool. And then we have Vicky Wong, a rising senior at Cornell University, already shaping the future as the founding product design intern at 20, which just earned product of the day on Product Hunt. And she's experienced in campus design systems and passionate about making design sustainable as well. So, hi, Vicky. How are you doing?
I'm great. Nice to meet you. Excited to bring my perspective. I also hope to get to know more about how to design more sustainably on this podcast too.
Thank you for joining, guys. So, I have invited both of them today. This is for my audience, them today, not just because of what they know, but because of their curiosity. Basically, that's what started this conversation at the first. So they will be asking me a few tough questions, maybe, as designers face around systems, tokens, or maybe Gen AI as well, which is the current trending topic. So now to kick off, I would love to hear from both of you guys, like how do design systems show up in your work right now, and what's the biggest question you carry with you about them?
I can start it first. So currently working with, I guess, developing design systems for my school's project team. We are currently launching an internal fundraising platform, and it's currently in its like incubator phase. So we did like very core MVP development in the past few semesters, and this semester we want to launch internally for testing. But the designs still need to be polished up because previously they didn't have like a design system. And so this semester, we are also creating a design system to be able to develop the product sustainably and also scale it in the future for future features and also development. So there's that. I think that's a different side of design systems, like creating the design system. And then on 20 right now, the ongoing internship I have with them is adding and creating components to be added into the design system. So because these products are at different stages in their product cycle, the design system looks a little different as well. And so it's very interesting to see like how it kind of progresses throughout the product's life. And I guess like the biggest question I carry with with it is how to be able to create a system that is sustainable in the long run while also like being creative with like the
Hmm.
way I design. Because I think sometimes it can be a constraint to the way I think as a designer, because there's so many existing parts that you have to take into account. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing answer. Like, yes, definitely there are a few things we need to think of while
Yeah.
going into that, starting thinking of making a design system. And we feel
Mm.
there are few constraints to do that. But yeah, that's an amazing
Mhm.
answer. We'll be talking about that in more detail. So what's your take on it, Genevieve?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm working on a project for one of my courses at Design Lab, and we're building a design system kind of from the ground up. And I have only a few components, like the basics. I think the question that comes up for me mostly is how to like considering user experience from a designer perspective in your Figma files, like even how to lay out your components in Figma. And there seems to be a lot of different opinions about that. And even just a few design systems like popular and less popular kind of structure things very differently. So I'm curious on your take on that. I'm sure we'll get to that later today too. But yeah, that's been kind of top of mind for me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a good like start, I will say, because there are so many design systems right now, and every company has their own structure, and that's what it confuses for new designers or like junior designers who are just getting to understand the design systems. They are like,
Mm,
okay, this is IBM's Carbon design system. This looks good, but when you're jumping into Material IO, they have a different structure.
Yeah.
hmm
So
Yeah.
it kind of confuses, but it's kind of their own thing they're owning. But like Brad Frost is working on something called global design system, which is like, why do we have to create a button multiple times for every company with a different
Right.
code for their own thing, right?
Mm,
You can create a button one for long, that's it, and you can
hmm
just use it, right? So that's the goal kind of few people are working towards.
Cool.
So yes, getting into the conversation, you guys had few questions which we can dig into on the design system side. So let's kick
mm,
off on that.
Mm.
yeah.
I have one I think that relates to what you were just talking about. But because you brought up Brad Frost, something he talks about is how a design system is really like exemplifies how a organization communicates like throughout the organization. It kind of is like a little picture of what that looks like. And I was just curious of if you found that to be true in your work. Like, excuse me, organized design systems mean like clear communication, or have you seen design systems where you felt like, uh-oh, this
Yeah.
organization is probably not talking to each other very well. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. Like, I will give you guys two examples on what I think about this, like from the start. Like, first, when I started with design system, the curiosity grew around, okay, how this works, what's the need of design system? Why do we need a design system? I can just go and design product, right? We have that liberty. But and then when I started in that field, I was working per brand had a different design system. Just think of it. It just kills the purpose of a design system. Then I was working with a company where we created one design system for the whole different brands and then just theme it around. So that's kind of the start I have also started through. So I know for the start, for junior designers, it's difficult to understand why do we need a design system, but asking correct questions in the start would be a great start. uh, I've said start a lot in this answer, but yeah, just so I will say early on, like systems were about speed and consistency. Now they are about scaling, moreover. Not just about scaling design, I will say, but scaling collaboration. Then accessibility is very important part of it right now. Then also even right now AI workflows, because AI is changing the whole workflows, how we work as designers, developers, and PMs as well. And like the, currently the design system's purpose, I will say, has expanded from components to a bigger culture, I will say. It's a bigger word, but still it has gone to till that extent. So that's my take on it. Hope I have answered your question correctly.
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have. Yeah.
I think for me, I don't know, like, can you repeat the question again just to make sure I can answer it? Because I have some
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm known to ask some kind of windy questions, but I guess like Brad Frost talks about how like a design system really shows how an organization communicates. And it can
Mm,
support or take away from like, how an organization communicates.
yeah.
And I think maybe he was implying like beyond the, developer designer communication, like maybe just throughout the company as a whole.
Mm,
So yeah, just curious if you've seen that or if you agree or
yeah.
disagree or yeah.
I
Does that
definitely
help?
agree. I would say I have been coffee chatting like other senior designers as well through this process of getting to know the industry more. And I think in a larger, more established company where the product is matured enough, it seems like whatever the designers do, they have to align like very closely with the system. And that can take like weeks and months of just like going back and forth with the design system team. However, in a startup culture where that system is still growing and very like in the beginning phases of still in the growth phase, there's so many things to be added to the system. We move pretty quickly. And so this culture is more like you prioritize engineers in the sense that we want the product to keep pushing, keep growing. And the system call like sort of falls like as a secondary thing. Um, as a designer, though, now on the team, I feel like we do have a pretty like robust design system because the product is already of like 2 years. But still, I think it would look a little different relatively to like a bigger and more established company that has been growing its design system for like 10 or 15 years. So I'd say like just workflow in the day-to-day routine looks very different because we think about speed over like just consistency sometimes, and it's something that definitely we have to like compromise and yeah, work
Mm,
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Thanks
That's
for that
that's
insight.
really yeah. That's really insightful. And like speaking of how
Yeah.
design systems show up in different work cultures, I will say startup SMEs or enterprises.
Mm,
And so I had one point as well. I just came to my mind. Like you can
mm,
like uh, I generally say this in my classes, which is like you build with design systems, not for like you build with the organizations, I will say, or the teams,
yeah.
not for the teams. I will say it's kind of it's a different term, but
Mm,
you build with them, and you start by listening first in a startup culture. Like start um, what do devs struggle with? That's what the bigger
Mm,
question is, because that's where it all starts to go down or go up in a better way. And what slows
mm,
down, like kind of again, the next question is, if there's a different designer working with you, you're working on a design system side, what slows down designers? That's a different question. So that's how we can start working on that. And then the governance part, the design tokens, the styling, and that comes later. Cool. So
mm,
uh, any other pointers, like what you guys want to talk on?
yeah.
Like specifically, I think you had a few more questions.
Yeah.
So
I have one question, more about like the experience of handing off designs in the design workflow. So, from your experience, what makes a great designer developer handoff in a system-based workflow? So, in a, I guess, company that has a system for handoff, I would like to learn more because with the current environment that I'm in, there's technically no like established way of handing off designs. We kind of just sit next to the developer and just like go through the specs of the designs because we're such a small team. There's no need to like schedule a meeting or like do a sprint, a whole sprint just to like go over or present. We just sit next to each other because like the team is so small. Same for like the project team that I'm on, the product that we're launching internally. I think its life cycle is still pretty similar in the very startup and growth phase. Yeah.
So to answer that, I will say this works with the enterprise companies as well. It's the same kind of
Mm.
like specs, but they have more processes, of course, to
Yeah,
follow.
yeah, yeah.
Like they have different communication channels, they have Jira
Mm.
tickets, they have, and they have more like a better timeline, like management kind of project
Mm.
management is much better. Like there, somebody can jump in and just ask few questions. Okay, this is not working. Let's do this or something like that. So I will say what ideal would be is first comes is building up the relationship with devs. Like that relationship
Yeah.
with devs is very important because, and after that, not only after that, just working with them while, for example, you take a component, kind of a small component model or something. What we try to do is we structurally try to keep it as developers can make it as well. So it's like we are
Mm,
talking on both the sides. We are not like driving it completely from the design. We are driving it from the
mm,
design, side, the aesthetics, the accessibility, everything, all the important specs which are needed for them. But we also see at developers, okay, what's not working for them, because some things work in Figma, not on the dev side.
Mm.
We need to
Yeah.
have that conversation. Like, for example,
Mm.
some developers have a habit of using absolute positions for close buttons or the burger
Mm.
menu. You can use a flex box there, kind of, but they have that habit. So they are using. So you need to have that relationship to say, okay, please don't use
Mm.
that. That will create a different problem going forward,
Mm.
as they won't have the flexibility for adding a padding or something, and that button will be just floating around somewhere. So
Yeah.
that's how mostly I approach things. And for the design tokens
Mm.
as well, right now, design tokens is a big part in this while giving this handoff. That's where the power comes in, because it's one source of truth, right? So what happens is, when I give them values directly from the design side, like from Token Studio to JSON values, what they get is they get the raw values there, and they can just add those tokens. If I update something here, they will have those updates. So, but only if we have the same structure and they have the
Mm.
similar structure close enough, like structurally, okay, this is an auto layout, so there is a flex box. There's now a grid update in Figma. If you are using a grid, they can use a grid or something. So
Yeah.
using that divs, like something like that. So that's how I will
Language.
say
Yeah.
that communication part would help, and definitely few process
Mm.
flows. Generally, what I have been doing in this company is I like to keep everything in my view as I use FigJam. Okay, I am not understanding one concept of how you as a designer are handing off design tokens to a developer, because there are some Git flows, GitHub comes in, how you push it, how you pull it. Those things designers don't know generally because they are not into
Mm.
right. They have to learn few things. What I do is specifically, okay, what's my first step to do? I put it in a FigJam board. Okay, this is my first step. Create a component. What's the second step? For that particular component, I'm saying, what's the second step? I need to give this specs to them. I need to talk to them first. And generally, I would say don't go to them on the later part while developing the component. Keep them in the conversation while you are starting the research as well. Tell them, okay, this is the
Mm.
research I saw, because you need to back your decisions too, right? Sometimes they will come, oh, this is not how it works. But you can back your decisions with, okay, this is the research. This is how the bigger companies do that. That's why I have got an inspiration from that. And now I am doing this in this way.
Mm.
That's how,
Keeping them in the loop. Yeah.
correct. Always, mostly.
Mm,
Mm. Mm.
So,
yeah. I like that a
yes,
lot. You kind of
yes.
answered one of my other questions, which was sort of related to governance, which I think does, not governance, but like ensuring that the engineers are understanding your designs and implementing them the way you design them, basically, you know? And I like how you just talked about really including them earlier on instead of like having the kind of shock value. Um, do you have like any other or even some suggestions more specifically of how to build up a relationship with devs? Because I found like, I don't have a ton of professional work experience, but in the experience I had, sometimes what even asking like, hey, can I talk to you about a design or do you want to like sharing that input wasn't always like exciting for engineers to do because
Mm.
they're just
Yeah.
like, that's not my thing, that's your thing, kind of. Um, and yeah, just trying to find that balance and how to really foster that when you're an early career UX
Yes.
designer.
It's mostly
Mm.
about asking the right questions. First, you can ask few questions which you can Google, right? Right now, you can use Perplexity or ChatGPT or anything, right? For that particular questions. If there is very specific question, that's what I do. If I am curious about, okay, how does this happen? But I can find the answer, which is a general, like, for example, a GitHub answer. I don't know how Git flows work. What is a rebase? What is a pull and push? I don't know. I will search, I will find those answers. What happens when, like, for example, as designers, if they come to us, they start with what is Figma, we get irritated, like, okay, you can read it on Google, right? You can read it somewhere, you can understand it.
Yeah.
So that's what
Mm.
happens generally in dev and design relations, like
Mm,
generally, I will say. So you trying to bridge bit of a gap, like going towards that, okay, I have this knowledge, but I'm not understanding with this knowledge, would this work? Or do you have a different insight on that? So that's not directly
Mm,
uh, offending them with any different or stupid question. We are just going with a bit of our take on what we learned, so
mm,
that they are also like, as humans, you would have seen everyone likes to teach other human in general. If you ask question, they
mhm,
like, okay, let me get
yeah.
into a teacher mode, right?
mhm,
That's what I will say will happen with them as well. So that's how you will
mm,
build a relationship, kind of, to start with.
Mm,
And then when you understand those core concepts of how your design dev workflows are working, then you can go deeper uh, into
yeah.
few things. Like when it's developed, then it's much easier to talk. Okay, let me see. Okay, this isn't working. Should we do it in this way or something? Then you can suggest. They can also come back. Okay, on the design system side, on the on the Figma dev mode, I don't see this kind of a token, but we might require that, because we think of the user experience. They are also thinking of user experience from the accessibility perspective, because accessibility is mostly handled on the dev side with the ARIA labels, with the keyboard navigation, because we can't do it in Figma, right? It's just the contrast check. So they are also thinking about the user experience of a uh, any customer. So they have different insights on their flexibility about that component, or of their pattern or something. So then it bridges, like if they come up with questions as well, you will have to be patient with them. So I will
mm.
say, patience will start a better relationship with them in the start.
Yeah.
Because in
Oh,
my
that's
previous
cool.
company,
Thanks.
like they do think of, sometimes I know how developers will treat a designer. Like I've seen some, not in current company or something, long back, 5-6 years ago. Uh, they were like thinking, okay, designers are stupid only. They will design something. We'll just try to see, okay, we want to make it something look like that. So we'll do it on our own way. It's developed,
Yeah.
everything is done. But when we go and QA that, it's like, okay, the sizing is wrong. The spacing is wrong. Designers have that eye. If only 1 or 2 pixels are also off, right? So
Mhm,
we see that, but they don't, kind of.
mm, mhm.
So that's why you need
Yeah.
to have a better,
Yeah.
and I think this is the start. So hope you guys
Yeah.
think like this would, or you have any question on that, like,
Yeah.
do you have any confusion on how I have said?
No,
I
it's
think
Thanks.
nuanced, right? But go
Yeah, yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
Vicky.
yeah, I think that was a really good, I guess, like introduction to working with devs. I would say I can add a little bit to like my experience, limited experience on working with devs so far. I think this past summer was my biggest experience working with devs and seeing like the different struggles that makes up why people find it hard to work with devs as a designer. But I think the main thing is like being able to speak their language and understanding that, oh, if they spend like actually like going into like their shoes
Yeah,
as like
yeah.
a, for example, like you are trying to understand like your user, kind of like that. Like if they spend so long on a component, they wouldn't want us to like nitpick every single thing. So
Mm,
being there in the beginning, like Ankur said, is very important. And so when we catch the mistakes early on, they can fix it while they're still working on the component or like other designs, instead of like after they spend so much time on it we
mm,
go back and like nitpick. Obviously, auditing design is very important too, but I think it's just a pain for them to have to like go back and like re-edit everything. And then another thing is like they want to save time. Like any company wants to save time and effort. And so understanding that as a designer too is also very crucial to like how you want to prepare for the handoff, which is like the initial contact between the devs, because you want to make sure your design is like final before you hand off anything, because if you want to change anything afterwards, it'll be like a secondary step that will
mm,
add to like time and effort. And so yeah, I think that's something I'm still working on too, is being able to make the final call of like when the design is ready to hand off, instead of going back and like, oh, I'm not sure like if that's done yet. Like,
mm,
oh, I think we should change the color. Or like that's when like the devs are like, oh, It's
Mm.
so
Yeah.
annoying. Yeah.
So that's like, yeah, that's like how to be less annoying as a designer too,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, but
probably
yeah,
step one to building the
yeah,
relationship. Yeah,
yeah. It's like
cool.
really understand like if I'm a dev, like what would I hate from a designer and like fixing that from the design side. That's
Mm.
kind of how I approach it usually because like I was always confused why there was so much tension.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
True. Oh, as like right now, Genevieve had some insights about the governance as well. Like she was seeing something about the governance, and plus, uh, I'm saying more about documentation. Like let's get
Mm.
on that take. So, do you
Mm,
guys have bit of experience, or do you guys know what governance is basically, or would a documentation help you guys? Then I will answer one question. Like let's just keep
yeah.
it. Yeah,
Do you want to go? So you want
yeah.
to go first, Vicky? You look like about to.
Oh, I can start off, but I think I have very limited experience with like documentation. I know the design system itself is a documentation of like the styling of the product, but I think keeping up documentation as you go as a designer in the process is still very new to me. Like being able to document every design decision, every processy, and also the reasoning behind like why you do that. So the next designer that looks at your product and the design system can understand where you came from. I think that's something that is still I'm still trying to develop. So I have a lot of questions
Yeah,
regarding
I'm
that.
the same. Like my background with what is more into like it was more in the startup world, and we were
Hmm.
definitely on more that like evolving mindset that Vicky was talking about earlier, where you're prioritizing build and engineers and
Mm,
so documentation for design choices, even though it was encouraged in the organization, it was still like but we don't have time
secondary
for
thing.
yeah, and
Yeah.
felt like we were putting something in stone that was very much not in stone, and so it just
Yeah.
felt so wrong, like, as a designer, I was like, "Well, this is evolving, and we're not sure if this is the best
Yeah.
this is the way we wanna use this
Yeah.
component
Hmm.
moving forward."
Yeah.
So that was really tricky as far as documentation is concerned on the other end. I mean, really the extent of it for us was doing like marking out little specs in like dev mode in Figma,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know, and kind of making little notes in there. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm pretty new to that world too. So happy to hear your
Yeah.
advice on
Yeah.
that.
I think
Okay.
what a lot of people like think design is like it's always final. Like once you hand it off to dev, it's final. Like
Mm,
I think I also just learned that it's so iterative of a process too that
Hmm.
like it can't be like in its final form even at the handoff like process.
Hmm.
And so we need that documentation. It's so important for like the next like round of
yeah.
designers to look at designs and be able to understand everything. Yeah.
True.
Mm,
Okay. Really good insights, I will say, because this is exactly what I as a designer also went through. Like in my previous years when I was starting. Okay, well, I'm designing a component. I am using that component in a product, but this is not going to get like on the later part. We are not documenting anything of it, not the props, any properties, any specs of it. We are just going and developing the products. But the design system is getting a bit stale, and also the documentation as well, which nobody has time to update because few designers feel like it's boring. I don't want to add it. It happens.
mm,
Yeah.
Here, here the documentation part is important, of course, but moreover I will say like while going into documentation side, let's first talk about the governance part because it connects somewhere to the documentation as well somewhere. So as governance is kind of governing your own design system, but with the questions, and it's more about not making governance as a design system police, which I will say that's what can happen. Like, okay, some designer is coming to me, I am a design system owner, I'm governing it. Can I do this? No, you can't. You just have to do this or
Mm,
something. So that shouldn't be the attitude.
mm,
It should be more of uh, I will say, as a collaborator. Position yourself as a collaborator first. Then instead of saying you can't do this, we can say, how can we solve this together within the system? That would be a better question. Or like we can ask them, how can we solve this?
Mm.
Then the conversation starts. Okay. And when people see you as a partner, not as a police, then governance becomes, I will say, empowering to
Mm.
start with. And we are also setting up somewhere in our company. The governance part is very important. Right now, how it works is they come to, like, designers come to us with the questions. How can we do this? We say, okay, you can break this. You can use, maybe with a developer's help, you can add this on your side. But generally, why governance is needed? First of all, when you are in a company where are multiple designers and you have a design system, you own the design system. Every designer will come with a question. Every designer will come, oh, there's no flexibility for this product specifically. I want to add this prop into this because this not working for me. Next designer will say, it's not working for me. As he has suggested,
Yeah.
we have updated it. Like, as a design system, okay, I need to curate our design system as per the needs. So you are curating as per the needs, but you are disturbing the whole design system main goal as well, because as you are adding more features or something, it kind of becomes more brittle. I would always
Mm.
say, look on the higher level. Okay, what does five designers need? Do they need similar features, which is around, okay, I need this to work like this, for example. And if they say yes, okay, these are the common grounds. Okay, there are 4 or 5 pointers on that. Okay, this is the first feature I want. Everyone is asking for the same feature. Then it's a viable ask to add it into the design system, so that you don't break your design system going forward. You just keep evolving on it. And I will say, if we curate, like if we help the users, customers or users, around 60 to 70% of their needs as well, it's a big win. You shouldn't go 100%. You never would be able to go 100%.
Yeah,
So
and that 100% is like we're not that happy because like we want the ideal.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say 60% is also amazing, because everyone has demand. And when you work in an enterprise environment, you have 40 to 50 to 60 to 100 designers. They will ask for different features for that particular component.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to make your own choice. Of course, talking to the stakeholders, what's important, how much time developers have it. So there are different factors to it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's how I will say the governance should work. And yeah, again, the
Mm.
documentation part on that. Of course, documentation should have like few key features uh, for the design system specifically, which is for any designer coming. Like, for example, you are going into a new company, you are going to an enterprise environment, and you want to understand the design system, what they are doing. And it should be easy, right? As a newbie in their company working on that particular thing, whatever product you are in, it should have the main foundations, which are always colors, typographic, what's the design principles they are following, uh, how they are using their type scale, how they are using their different color schemes, are they using design tokens, how are they governing those things, what's the procedure if I want to ask for something. So those foundations, then going into details about, okay, this is the component, what can I understand going into that component, okay, this is how it should be used, or I am feeling, okay, I don't want to use it, I will make myself something. So you can give feedback as well as you are new. So that are like very important things in documentation. But from a design system side, now I'm coming from a different perspective. First was as a new designer. As it's from
Mm.
design system side, how should you maintain it? It's like maintain the change logs, I will say, because in change logs you can add, okay, this is the feature you have added newly into that, and just make a note of it in Notion as well. As you are in startup, you can create a Notion page, just update, okay, what you have worked on, this is the feature I have updated for this particular component, which was different feature previously, I have changed it to something. So you have very concrete evidence as well. Because what happens in startups is, if something breaks later when you are curating it too much, the blame comes directly to the designer. You said so.
Yeah.
But always document the conversations and the decisions somewhere. Okay, on Slack at this point, I had this conversation with them, and this is the decision we made. This is the proof. So that you're backing
You're
your
coming
decision
down
as well.
with me.
No, it just
Uh,
keeps you sane. And also, if you want to go back what you have discussed and
mm,
understand what decision you have made, then it's better to go back. So I will say there are a few things to documentation coming, uh,
mm.
going towards
Can
that.
I ask a follow-up question of something you said a little earlier? You brought up kind of making components that are like specific to a need when there is a need, but you were saying how like that can get kind of just too, I think you used the word brittle, like just a lot of like different things in the design system. In general, is there even in general, I don't know, but is it better to have like more flexible components in your mind, or a higher quantity of components? Like is that just like a,
Okay,
what direction would you go with that?
it's a very subjective question, but I wouldn't
Okay.
say it doesn't have any objective answer. Specifically, like I will tell
Okay.
you, okay, this is it. Always depends on the use. What's the use case? We always look at the component as, okay, what's the use case? Why do we need this? Sometimes we have hundreds of buttons. Do we need that? We are creating
Mm.
primary, secondary, tertiary. Then there are a few more, like links or something, different kind of buttons. Can we control it from some? So, and do we need it in our product? That is the first question. What is it going to solve? Is the customer asking for it? Is this is what will help the customer? Then only add it. Or sometimes there are one-off components. That's what I say. Like most of the times, that's how different product teams work in a different environment. Like for example, design system is here. It's not brittle, it's flexible. 60-70% of time, it will give you what you want. But sometimes you have a different use case for a different product. Then you can break that component and you can create something on your own. So
Mm.
you have that flexibility using the base as that start of the component, and that's where the patterns come in.
Mm.
Components come first, then patterns come in. When you have patterns, like what are patterns basically? Patterns are reusable, similar flows in any different UIs. For example, in our insurance field, it's mostly a form or something, a different form, adding a driver, adding something. So there are few patterns which we we just give it, but to a designer, they can just pull it. Okay, I can use the same pattern for a different use case, which is adding an employee. Maybe they won't need a few different fields, which is adding driver license or something, so that it becomes reusable. But you can break it. It's detachable. Like the components are not. Of course, you shouldn't, because it carries across the code. But
Right.
you can detach the patterns, so that that flexibility is also built in. So it's like from the both side, how you balance it
Okay.
on
Thanks.
your
Yeah,
side.
that's really
So
helpful.
yeah.
I have a question that like adds on to that. Like,
Hmm.
I know as a design system designer, you think very high level and you also think very systematically. Whereas like individual designer, product designers, UX designers, we think very narrow on the specific product feature, whatever we're designing on. And so we don't on the day to day think systematically, usually, if we're like iterating on features. And so my question, like when in order to work with better with design system designers, we want to be able to collaborate better with them. And so, how do you recommend practicing thinking higher level and systematically, just like while we're designing our feature, so to make sure that we're taking into account the different things a system designer would consider when you approve or disapprove a certain component or yeah
Yeah.
decision.
Okay. So um, I would start with few questions there.
Mm,
Okay. Like I said, what's the need? What's the use case? Why are we using that
mm,
component? Do we need it? And is it
mm,
urgent, or we can use a different component on that
Mm.
like place.
Mm.
For
Yeah.
example, if there's a different component which serves a same functionality, do we have to add a new component? If there's a good uh, like weightage to that answer, then you can add that particularly. Like,
Mm.
okay, let me think of it. Let me talk to my developer. How much time they have? Should we do it? Let's go. Okay, PM has approved it. Everyone up. I will go into the details. But what happens right now is, as designers, we are in love with our tools. Always.
Yeah.
We are like, oh, 4 pixels on this side. I love this. And oh, this is not working. So we are always stuck into those things. That's where right now, as the processes are growing differently, Gen AI workflows come in. What I will recommend right now is just design a component, what you want for now.
Mm.
Bring it into an AI prototyping tool, kind of Figma Make. Put it there, just add, okay, I want to create this interactions there, and see if it's working well for you, and see, like, make a quick prototype which can be in like few hours. That's what I am changing the flows into right now. And how specs are
Mm.
given to developers, because right now we say this button should have that hover state when we hover on it. They think, okay, we just have to change the hover. But what we are imagining is, when we hover on it, it should animate like this, and the color should change from inside out. That's lost in the conversation, right? We are just saying this should work. That's where the prototyping would help, like on this uh, thing. I hope I am answering it correctly, what you asked, right?
Mm. So see it in application
Mm.
to test it out.
Correct. So, and right now with
Mm.
AI prototyping tools, I will say use is extensively, because they are there, and it
Mm.
gives us much better insights and also brings in different ideas. It's like an ideation tool. You are thinking, I
Mm.
want to add a table or something, but how should I do it? Go ask AI. It will give you a
Mm.
few ideas, like how we are getting inspiration from Mobin or Pinterest or Behance or Dribble or different websites. You can just go to AI and ask very specifically about your own stuff. I want to use this component for this particular feature, and I am stuck into this part. What should I do? You will get few prompts on ChatGPT maybe. Take that prompt, paste it into Figma Make, Replit, Lovable, and just start experimenting. Then you understand, okay, this is how the feature I want. Then design it into Figma and say, okay, this is the design. These are the features I want, which is exactly like that. When I click this should happen. This should happen. Then developer gets a complete handoff, kind of like more than what we are giving right now. Right now, it's in translation or in conversation, we are losing around 60 to 70%. No, sorry, we are talking only 60 to 7%. 30% is getting lost in assumptions. Like, oh, they would know, right? Oh, developers are smart enough. They would know, but they would do their thing on their own side. So I would
Yeah.
say, I would suggest to do experiments like this and show them, so that
Mm.
it's much clear, like 90%, too optimistic, but 90% of the time, what you are showing features they should develop, so that they
Mm.
have that clear direction as well. They are not confused on how should I do this. When I click on this menu, how should it open? We haven't told them how should it open. We have just told them it should be open. How should that happen? We haven't told them. So
Mm.
hope that thing might help you guys on that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that helps get into the mindset of like a design systems designer too, because they're thinking bigger picture and how something might fit into the system. So it's like, would they be interested in that kind of thing too? Like kind of showing or seeing like what you're trying to get done. So maybe that, like that question you answered earlier, you suggested earlier, like how can we make this work within the system? Does that help that conversation also? I would guess.
Yeah, definitely it would. Like,
Mm.
Cool.
yeah,
I have a question. Do you
yeah.
think, because you mentioned this earlier about how like design systems were more about consistency and making things happen faster, like efficiency basically, and now it's become culture, more about culture. And I just wanted to ask about how you think design systems and their purpose has evolved. And I know that's part of it, but I was wondering if there's anything else like that we should be just thinking differently about the purpose of design systems in an organization.
Hmm. Really good question. Let me think.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. Before like starting into design systems, like few years ago, everyone was understanding it as a style guide. I will say most of the time,
Mm.
people were getting confused in it's a style guide only, right? Design system is a style guide. It's just button or a
Mm.
UI kit. UI kit is different from design system. I will
Oh,
clearly say
okay.
that UI kits are different from design system because in design system you have your own decisions, you have your own use cases built in, you have your own usage of it and how that component is getting used in different products.
Mm.
In UI kit, you are just picking up, like just lifting it up something. Okay, it can work for me, but you have to still curate it to make it your own, right? You can just take material.ui, a material, and just use that. But would it work for you? No. So that's the starting point. But right now, as a culture, I think it has evolved, and many companies are looking for people having the design system experience because they have seen uh, how it's impacting the overall business as well. It
Mm.
speeds up development time, which is all we need, right? Developers are highly paid, highly skilled people. So you, so they are cutting on that, but still you need something very quickly to develop. You have to give some outputs faster to customers. Design systems do scale from, like, maybe I will say, if you have to build a product from the start with all the buttons and everything, it might take 2 months to do that basic website as well. But if you have design
Mm.
system, you are just pulling few things in the component side on how dev side works. They are just pulling up the components and they're just creating a design very quick, a developed implementation design. So it's very quick on their side. So it saves time, it saves money, and it's a big value for the customers as well as businesses going forward because they can curate more clients. So that's how it's growing,
Mm.
and that's how, like, you need to think on the higher level on how this is going to impact. And that's where again the conversation of the brittleness of the design system comes in, where you put in a lot of features and then it's not flexible enough. It should be flexible enough, but it shouldn't be flexible enough to do anything. So it's kind of a balance you have to make there. So
I think another question I had was, like you said, design system is very important to the business because it helps reduce time and effort. I think another part of design system that I think is also very important is like the branding. Being able to like define what the product is too very clearly and make sure that it's like streamlined throughout the whole product as the product is growing and also like in the beginning phases of when it's like entering the market. It's also something that a lot of products don't prioritize. Like you see, sometimes there are products that prioritize more engineering efforts, and so like that branding and identity aspect comes as a secondary thing. And sometimes some of these products and companies are like now realizing that design systems are so important, and so they're hiring like interns to help like manage things because it feels like more of a tedious task that they think that like will take more time. And so
Mm,
I'm glad that it's growing more importance and also like gaining more um I guess realization by other people that like it's a need and not a want in like a product.
mm.
Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I 100% agree with that. It's like it's really hard to you know, it is part of the user experience, just especially for new startups also, it's really
Mm.
tricky to balance um yeah, like good software that works, you know what I mean? Like functioning product and then, something that looks nice. And I think that's another difficult conversation like Anko, you were mentioning when like where designers are like 4 6 pixels here, like we have like specific things. And in my I think you mentioned Vicky design audits basically when we started getting a better flow in this startup with meeting with developers after they had done their first round of like building something. Um,
Mm.
it was like very different from it was functioning, but there were a lot of little things that like the moment you fix these, this product
Hmm.
looks like something people would trust more.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get across the importance of that to the
Yeah.
engineers who are, working under fire because they have to
Yeah.
go so
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you
Yeah.
have
So
I think
experience like with that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like first, when in a startup, I would ask a question to myself: would I need a design system first of all in the first place? Because some people
Oh.
doesn't need a design system at all to start with.
Mm.
But
mm.
if you need a long-term growth, kind of, then like while developing the product faster, you're also documenting few things which you might need. Like you can audit those and you can understand, okay, I'm using this kind of patterns or this kind of buttons a lot into
Mhm.
my design very quickly in a startup environment. Let's make it as a pattern and keep it somewhere so that I can just pull it later when the developers have time. They have developed the code, right? They can create a pattern code as well for that particularly, or a component code for that specifically. So that's if you can have that parallel approach. Not exactly it will work in parallel because you will have to prioritize the product launch for sure. But as a designer, if you think, okay, this might be needed in future,
Mm.
or your team also thinks we'll need to change few things or do something, document it properly while doing it parallelly. Just a rough documentation for yourself also helps somewhere,
Mm. Yeah.
and then go towards it, like approach that in that way. Like, and that first part is
Mm.
like, then if you understand, okay, there's a need of design system, a basic design system, few buttons, few cards, few layouts or something,
Mhm.
that's also okay to start with. If
Mm.
developer has and the company is agreeing with it, like that will save us a whole lot of time. I would say that's how I will approach that problems, which
Mm.
generally comes into
That's good.
startups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. That's really
So
helpful. I think
yeah.
we're especially with, high achieving startups that like want to, plan ahead even I think is part of it too,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
trying to get ahead of things and you hear the term tech debt a lot and not wanting to like have to go back, but I do like kind of I feel like it's the most flexible and the most and it sounds a little weird, but like realistic. Like it's very
Hmm.
grounded. Like this is what we need right now. This is how we can get from point A to point B. And like, no, it's not perfect. And maybe we don't have like a polished design system right now, but we can plan for it without complicating the build process for the engineers. I think is,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm repeating that correctly, if I said anything wrong
Oh,
there, but
yeah, that's right.
yeah, yeah, cool.
Cool.
Hmm.
So if you guys have any important questions, or I can turn the tables and ask few questions for you guys. How do you want to keep it? Do you have anything
Let me,
else you want to talk about? Like
yeah.
it's a high priority for you and you think might help the audience as well
Mm.
as you guys as well.
Yeah, I'm looking through mine, and I think you've answered a lot of them, just kind of
Yeah, a lot
talking
of them
about other
are
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
they're like overlap.
Yeah, a lot of them
Um,
are overlapping. So, I think I have answered most of them
yeah.
too.
I have a just kind of a silly practical question.
Hmm.
Like, do you have like design system like pet peeves? Like things that you see when people I don't know, when other designers or I don't know, when it comes to the interpretation of the design system, or maybe you've seen other people's design systems
Oh,
built and you're like, why did they do it this way? Like, is there anything that
wow.
sticks out?
Oliver's like, this is my time.
This now I am gonna speak and rant out with definitely, because we are thinking, like, for example, I will give a different example. There was a case study I read about. You guys would have gone about it as well, like sticky notes, specifically about sticky notes. Like one company introduced sticky notes in the first place for sharing the ideas, right? That was the, like, I will be just very quick on that case study, like but what the use case when they designed a sticky note was, okay, let's use it to share ideas with different teams, different colleagues, and just keep it there. That was the start of taking notes and something like this. But what started happening with different companies when they started testing is they started using as a messenger, because there was no messaging or something like that. Okay, this is a message for
Mm,
them. So think of it like that. And that's what happens with systems as well. You are creating a system and you think you are in love with that system. Okay, this is how it should work. You should pull it from there. There are the features. But on the end user side, when you go and shadow them and see how they are using it, you will see a completely different side of things.
mm,
Like, for example, few designers whom I worked with, like mostly it's okay to not use auto layout and design things. Of course, the idea is important, the implementation is important, but we are doing few things out of the box to use auto layout because it translates exactly with the development. Like how auto layout works is it will translate like as flexbox on their side,
mm,
right? It will
mhm,
make your life easier. But they are not using, they are using just frames, just pulling it things, spacing is off, things are off. And those are the things which are like, okay, when they are getting into it, I am seeing, okay, I'm just shadowing them, what they have done in their products. And I see so many mistakes on those sides. But
mm,
that's like you need to see how they are going to use it as well, and how you are publicizing it. I don't know how things would work, because it's not in our control. It's human mostly. If
Right.
they want to
Right.
learn, and if they want to adapt to those things, or somebody is compelling them to adapt, like managers, okay, you have to do this, then they will adapt. Or they will focus on their own thing, how they are working. Because right now, when I work with different designers, they are like, oh wow, we have it out of the box, but you are still
mm,
messing it up. And plus, developers also don't have that knowledge, because they don't know
mm,
the whole design system. They are using just the parts of it, right? So
mm,
then things go off on their side as well. If somebody knows a bit more on the design system side, then it helps each other to go in the correct direction. But
mm,
if both are okay, new to those things, pulling the components and taking those, then it becomes
Yeah.
difficult. But yes, it's a good question, but there's no
mm,
realistic answer to that. I will say
mm,
more on making it public, like making it a public forum, like in your company forum, having the clinics, having the talks, openly talking about things, how to use it. Then
mm,
you can train designers on how to use those things. That's what
Yeah.
maximum you can do. Or
mm,
you can create an AI agent right now. If they have questions, they can ask AI agent and it will spit out some answers to
Mm.
them, something like that. Going
mm.
forward, I don't know. So
Yeah.
everyone is in
Is
the same boat, is what I will say.
well, how do you sorry if this is a little bit just a noob question, but I
Yeah.
like because you mentioned like shadowing someone, and I've heard that like that is I've heard that from a few design systems designers that they like when a designer is like repeatedly having issues or something, they'll shadow them and then they, reveal what's actually going on. How do you how do you initiate that without making the person feel like like, can I watch what you're doing? And this kind of ties in with the
No,
policing thing.
like I changed the conversation completely. Like, first of all, I am not policing it. Like I'm becoming their partner. Okay, they
Uh,
are they are coming to me with questions. Okay, Ankur, I don't know how to use this. This is not working. I don't know how this token is working, not working. Few things like that. I'm just
Mhm,
saying, okay, let's jump on a call. I will solve this for you. And they know, as I have those expertise, I will help them breeze that problem very quickly.
mm.
So I am partnering with them. Let's just check what you are doing. Let's just walk me through those things, and then I can suggest few things. That's a better way of
Framing
shadowing,
it.
like a
framing
tech
it and
support
shadowing. Yeah,
specialist.
tech
Yeah,
support,
okay.
kind of tech support on
Yeah,
design system
okay.
and design token side.
Uh,
Share screen.
Yes. Now they are
okay,
sharing
that's
screen.
great.
Yeah, now they are sharing screen. They are talking through things. This is not working.
Yeah,
This is not working. Then I will say, oh, did you try this? That might
yeah,
work. Let's see. Let's try that. It's not
yeah.
like intrusive, kind
Mhm.
of, but it's like,
Mhm,
okay, we are suggesting few things and they are also learning.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It just feels so it feels so much more, I don't wanna say complicated, but it's, like, a little bit different now than it was, like, before we are have these distributed remote teams where, like,
Hmm.
if you were in the same office, you could just go over to their desk and just be like, "Oh, we're helping
Yes.
with it." You like, now it's a little bit more you need to and you
Yeah.
don't see how people are doing
Hmm.
things, you have to
Yeah.
ask.
True.
And you're right, we are so human. So, it's
Yeah.
like we're all making little mistakes or taking maybe just not realizing it, and yeah.
Yeah. Like
Okay. Well, that's very helpful.
yeah, thank you. So the thing is, like, everybody has their own goals with working on different things. Somebody is very detailed oriented. Every designer has a different personality, I will say. Somebody loves the UI design side of things, somebody loves the research side of things, somebody loves just, oh, how should I make it more on the accessibility part, different things. And we don't know what their character, like what their personalities is. We are just going there to help them. That's where you understand, okay, what they are trying to achieve here. They are trying to achieve to get the product faster to release, or they are trying to do something very perfect that they are breaking it, or they are making very vague that it's not usable. So then I see a few things on those stuff. So that's how I approach things, kind of. And I have learned that I was very intrusive at some points. No, this is wrong. You are not doing this in the start. You're not doing this correctly. This is the because when I was a sole owner of a design system in another company, that's where I was getting a bit frustrated. This is not how
Yeah.
you use. This is how you
Defense,
should.
so defensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Defensive. You become defensive, of course, because you're owning
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, it's your
Mm,
baby. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
then you also see there, like, it isn't working for them and you are getting irritated, kind of. So you see the both side of it.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I have learned it through years, okay, how you should have that communication. And designers need good communication skills for sure, 100%. I will say more than
Mm,
developers, because
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So So these have been such thoughtful questions, and thank you for pushing me on this, like on different some difficult questions as well, out of the box, which we discussed already. So I would like to turn tables now and hear more about your own experiences with a few design systems. Uh, so, Vicky, I would like to ask you one question about. I think you mentioned about an iOS app you're working on the 50 plus students, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, how did working on something that big shape the way you think about the reusability and the systems which you were trying to do there?
Yeah. So I think okay, so for the first application, iOS application I was working on, that itself was a project of its own. The 50 other students that it impacted was part of the project team that I was on. So I guess like for the project team that impacts like for the other students, we were working on a design system that kind of scales across different teams. We were creating a design system that kind of brands our project team. And so creating that client facing like outward facing website was very difficult because we had to think about what we want to represent as ourselves as and also how we want to use those components also to market ourselves in like social media, stuff like that. It did take a few semesters to get to the right like iteration, but
Mhm.
I think the hardest part about that was like being able to work with other designers, like you said. Um, when you have 3 different designers that have 3 different like styles, and you're working and you're dividing the work up into like different pages, it can seem very incohesive and not
Yeah.
cohesive at all. Like after you finish the high fives. So the conversation has to come in the very beginning where you're like, oh, we have to decide and finalize on the styling. So we can all use the same design system to be able to like expand the actual pages of the product itself. And so that's something I learned a lot, like being able to work closely and talk closely with them um, throughout the whole process. Design is definitely not like an individual sport. I think with the system in mind, I think a good product needs to have that like backbone in order for it to even come across as cohesive and be
Mhm.
usable.
Mm,
Because the first semester when I was developing it, it didn't seem like a cohesive product. It didn't seem usable because I feel like every single page was designed by someone different.
Mm.
Because like in a big organization, there's so many designers, but it seems like the product is cohesive because it has that backbone. And so that's something I learned while designing the product, because the system is very important, and understanding like how to communicate with designers to be able to create that consistency is definitely something I'm still working on.
Wow. Just
Yeah.
following up on that question, like that answer of yours, I would say,
Mm.
like, do you think designers should junior designers should first learn the design craft, or just jump straight into
Uh,
the systems thinking?
I definitely think the craft is very important. I think that's how industry is like structured too. Like junior designers are not expected to think like systematically. They're expected to have the basic visual design skills, the basic Figma skills, the basic technical skills. Um, I think that is very important in order to like build on top of um and to understand systems better, because you need to understand like the pixels, the radius, the colors, the fonts, the size, the weight, in order to like see it on a higher level where it can work across the product. So I definitely think that the craft, like the pixel pushing is comes first before systematic and like systems thinking. But I do enjoy like being able to switch and toggle between that like micro level thinking and the macro level thinking. Yeah. And I appreciate like conversations like this where I can think at a higher level for the different like roles I have that are feel more micro, because we're focusing so much on like smaller features and smaller like design
Right.
decisions. Yeah.
Oh, that's a
I
great
love
Yeah.
that
answer. Thanks.
aspect of
Yeah.
UI UX too, of like the kind of
Yeah.
zooming in, zooming out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
that yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
then to answer like the second part, the first iOS platform was also my first exposure. It's like a separate thing. So the first iOS and the 50 plus students that I worked with were two projects. But the iOS project was more focused on like me understanding developers and being able to be in their shoes. About how to develop like an application, because it was the first time that I learned how to build an iOS application. And so I really understood like how to use GitHub, how to like use APIs, call APIs, and also like integrating like AI in the very first like in this AI heavy world right now. Um, in like a product too. So it was definitely a very dev heavy like summer. And so now I feel like I have a better understanding of how to speak their language and being able to communicate with them better, having that knowledge in the back
Hmm.
of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. So,
Awesome.
yeah, that's a great answer. Thanks for bringing us to that insight, like how junior designers should think of going forward. And yes, design craft is very much important. Like system thinkings come later in, I will say, the career, but it's
Mm.
like a growing part of it. So that's great. That brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask to Genevieve, which is, I yeah, you said you you have built the component library from scratch in the UX Academy, right?
Mhm.
As your first
Mhm.
student project. Like
Yeah.
looking back, what's one thing you would do differently now as you have learned a lot of insights into the design systems? So
Ooh. Well, uh, there's a couple things. So before I started pursuing my own kind of continued education on UX, I was working for the tech startup that I mentioned
hmm
earlier in some questions. And when I started working there, I had like little to no understanding or even concept of design systems. And the CTO there very generously was like, "Hey, you should look at this." And it was Google Material. And I remember being like, my initial feeling was just felt very like constrictive, and like I was honestly bummed out as a designer. Like Vicky's talking about the visuals and stuff. And I was like, oh man, like this is already set up. And now that I've like understood more about just how design systems work and what they're for, I've also appreciated like the pre-built stuff is really helpful,
Mhm.
especially for a startup and especially for developers. And it took me a long time to deprioritize the aesthetics sometimes, and for the sake of like productivity and efficiency of the
Hmm.
platform. And sort of what you were talking about, like, do we even need a design system? Like,
Yeah.
do the buttons need to be perfectly aligned with the brand identity? Maybe not today. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I feel like I've had to just like my journey of my relationship to design systems has been changed a lot. And in this project, I was like, oh my gosh, like creating even the simplest things to be flexible. I was like, this is a lot of work. Like a lot of thought goes into this. And sometimes even when you're making a component flexible, like it has so many options, it's lost its value a little
Yeah.
bit to me. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is now this button is too confusing.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, um, so yeah, it's been a really interesting process. I've learned a lot. I would love to do what you just talked about, Vicky, of hearing, like, just learning more about kind of the GitHub and like APIs and stuff,
Mm,
because that was definitely a point of, I wouldn't say friction necessarily, but there was a lot of misunderstanding and some hiccups that came in like the startup because of my lack of understanding of that. And like, just when is data pulled and when is data sent and when do we need a load state, and just little things like that, I think are um would definitely impact, like, I wish I had that learning first. Like you were talking about, should people have visual, I came from like purely visual, self-taught graphic designer, was designing brand identities and websites and stuff, to going into UX. And so different kind
mm,
of like a different path there. And I've had my own like struggles kind of adapting to this, finding that middle ground of that balance and being flexible while caring about the right things at the right time. um yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
learning and I'm
Yeah.
excited to learn
Yeah.
more. But
And in this process, would you think, like, how do you see, like, kind of, I had a question, like, how do you see in your career, what does the
mm,
design system influence? Like, kind of, let me reframe that question. How do you see design
mm,
systems influencing your career as you grow?
mm. I mean, I want to, that's all I want to do is design systems
Really?
right now. I
Wow.
love, yeah, I love what kind of Vicky mentioned, the like really nitpicky bit and then the really big conceptual stuff and how it affects the greater purpose of an organization or product. And I also just, this is a little like personal side note, but I like the meaning behind so many like choices in design systems. Like, I was watching a webinar, like from Figma Config,
Hmm.
about design systems, and just like kind of where we find that tension between like building for like the, should we build for the what ifs and plan for everything, or should we just do it now? And they had this cool statement that I felt really made an impact on me personally, that was like, when you hit the limit of a design system, that's all that is a sign of growth. It's
Hmm.
not a sign that you forgot something or you didn't plan enough, which is usually what I tell myself when with those kinds of things. It's like, oh, I should have thought of this.
Yeah.
And what I think is so beautiful about the way design systems are and what they serve an organization is that, like, you have to make what you need now, and you have to be flexible to grow, and you have to be clear. So there's like clarity throughout it all, but there's still that space to be a little bit messy and human and
Hmm.
nuanced. So yeah, sorry, that's my little
No, no,
I
nicely.
love that.
woo-woo
I love
Yeah,
that.
side of
nicely
that.
put
Yeah.
together. Nicely put together.
Yeah.
Great job.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think I also have the same perspective as you. Like, you feel like you're breaking it, but in a sense,
Yeah.
you're not technically breaking it because it's a sign of like growth. It's a sign of the product like evolving because
Mm,
you're adding to the system that didn't already exist.
mm,
And so it's a very good perspective and like a good way to frame things in order to like understand it's not a problem, but like,
mm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if
Awesome.
I answered your question, Anchor,
No, no,
but
you did. You
it's
did amazingly well. Like, it was really good. So I have one final question for you both, which is more on tied on to the Gen AI part, and which
Mm,
is like, what role do you see Gen AI playing in your own design practice? I'm not specifically about design systems,
mm.
design practice, because the flows are changing. What's your take on it?
Um, okay. I think right now in this state of where AI is, I don't think it can replace the iterative process that designers have. Being able to come up with new ways to design a certain solution. I think that is like very creative and that needs like humans. And because AI works on data, it creates something that's like already exists, and so it's impossible to replace that. But I think what AI can replace is that beginning stage up until the iterative process. So the research, the data, the user testing, that part, I feel like because it has so much data in its system and it's getting trained up on like user information too, it has a better understanding of like human behavior. What would they do in like common setting? Like get into, and we always prompt the AI like, oh, imagine you're like so and so. Imagine you're like a teacher, you're the best professor in like this college, and then you give the prompt. So that's
Mm.
kind of like if I were to be a user, what would that like, how would they react? So kind of like understanding
Hmm.
user empathy, and also being able to conduct research because they have a broad library of like just the internet to grab data from. We can easily do market research and also like competitive analysis with like what is already out there. So I think that's something that we can utilize AI for to cut down on the processes, specifically for like a product designer. I think on the systems level, it might be difficult. I know Figma Make has the ability to plug in like a design system, but it's still very much in the
Yeah.
beta
Yeah.
like process. But I think that will probably get better because that's also data, being able to pull from something that it's already existing, the
Hmm.
system, to be able to create and iterate like design. So I think it definitely has potential, but right now it's not in a um I guess, phase where we can utilize it actively. But
Yeah.
I have talked to other people and they were like, it's very useful in the beginning stages up until the iterative process,
Correct.
to get your head going,
Hmm.
about like what the solution can potentially look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's so true. I would say too, Figma Make would is great for. Well, I heard someone say about ChatGPT a while ago that like now no one can say they ever have writer's block because you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
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 and I
Yeah.
think Figma Make is kind of that for designers. Like
That's a good point.
you know,
Mm.
sometimes when there are times when I can visualize a whole user flow and I'm like I know exactly it's going to be
Yeah.
great, and then there's other times where you're designing a page that you expect to like have some ideas for and you only have
Yeah.
one in the moment. And then, in the past, I feel like I'd go just like Google search, like, okay, show me other
Mm.
checkout screens. Like, I just want to see what other people did. And I
Mm.
think I think, I don't know what word I want to do. What I was about to use the word safer, but like just
Mm.
not like stealing other people's work, but like trying
Yeah.
Figma Make to just be a brainstorming
Yeah.
partner,
Yeah.
sharing a screenshot of what you have and saying like what are some other ways to do this,
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
Mm.
and then going from there without being like, oh, I don't want to copy what such and
Yeah.
such site was or whatever.
Yeah.
um
For some
yeah,
features, you definitely don't want to like reinvent the wheel. Like for example,
right,
drop downs. It already exists, and so
Yeah.
there's no point to like
That's correct.
create a new version of a drop down or like a
right.
new button, like Ankur said. So to understand like what is industry standard for specific design components too
Mm-hmm.
is also very important. So I think that's also what AI can be used for because like they
Mm,
have a library of like the internet to pull from. And so we
yeah.
can have a better understanding of like how to start. And that starting point is also very important because like that's just what we need to get started on like an idea or a spark. And so
Mm,
I think that's what, yeah, like you said, would be useful for like an AI.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think one other thing I just thought of too is like organizations that like some startups sometimes like that don't have a budget for research,
Mm,
like doing what you mentioned, Vicky. Like I am so kind of doing that
Mm.
like user empathy thing, but also even
mm,
kind of running some like kind of fictional tests with some personas that you make,
yeah. Yeah.
at least gives you something to help back up your design decisions with your stakeholders in the company, and
Mm,
kind of foster like begin to foster like an appreciation for research to hopefully get that kind of funding in the budget. I know that's like a pain point for a lot of UX designers
yeah.
and small companies. Yeah, it's not a substitute for real user research, but it's something to go off of instead of feeling like your hands are tied as a designer and like being nervous that you're only making choices that you like, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah.
You also
Yeah.
touch upon, like, framing too. Sometimes, like, when you're talking to higher ups or, like, managers, it's good to understand their perspective. So
Mm,
before talking to them, sometimes I would be like, prompt the AI, like, what would they think? What would be some edge cases that I haven't really
mm.
considered? Things to think about beforehand as a way of preparation, for those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Great ideas though. Like this is what the industry is going towards, I will say. Like kind of what
Yeah.
Figma makes purpose right now is to use it mostly for quicker ideation, prototyping, and
Mm,
just validating those ideas quickly through PMs or customers or developers.
mm,
Can we do
mm,
this? Can we do so? Then you have
mm,
a clearer path, and then you can just design and go out to a final production. On that production level, we'll be seeing in my next session. We'll be digging deep into that definitely. But now, this has been such an energizing first episode, I would say. Amazing response and plus amazing question answering. So, Genevieve and Vicky, thank you for bringing your curiosity and perspectives. Yeah, you
Oh,
have
yeah, of
reminded
course.
us that design systems aren't just about the components or tokens, I would say. It's more about people, it's more about learning, all evolving together. So, to everyone listening or not listening, I don't know, I hope this sparked ideas and maybe even some questions of your own. So, stay tuned for more conversations where we blend design systems, creativity, and the future of Gen AI. And remember, every system is only as strong as the relationships behind it.
Mm,
Until next time,
love
mm,
that.
Thanks, Ankur.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining. Thank you.
Thanks.
You
Bye.
can stay on the call, by the way. I'm wrapping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw.